Welcome back. Just finished up with Governor Armstrong, and there's so much to talk to him about because there's so much going on. I thought the most I don't know, I thought the whole interview was good, but I thought the most informative part of that was the discussion about the state investment board. I do think because I think he's right, and it's not this is not coming from a perspective of pointing fingers, but we have so much more money that we're handling in terms of investments these days. A lot of it due to the oil industry, although even the pensions have grown because I mean, we
That's
were
what
talking
pensions
about
are
there at the end.
supposed to do.
Also the number of people in those pensions because state government has grown. There's a lot more state employees in those pensions, so they're handling a lot more money. And the way I think maybe we've structured some of the management, some of the administration of it all was born of another era. And I think he's right, has become kind of a patchwork. And so that's something I hadn't really thought about, but that really makes a lot of sense to have some intentional reforms to governance. I'm interested in seeing what those are.
Well, I think the whole thing is sort of interesting. I mean, the more I learn about this bonus thing, the more I'm opposed to it. But I also agree with the governor that if these folks are working under those expectations, you can't pull the rug out from them now,
Yeah.
right?
Well, right. We can have a debate about what we're going to do going forward,
But
but if we've made a commitment to them and they have an expectation, we shouldn't.
yeah,
No,
I mean,
we
it's my
shouldn't do it.
understanding that, Kelly said some of the folks have been there for like 10 months and they're benefiting from the last 3 years of investments. Like I think there's some stuff that we can look in. Do I want the legislature to be micromanaging what bonuses look like? Absolutely not. But
Well,
also
I don't mind the legislature because they have to. I mean, if they're going to make an appropriation, I think they have to approve
the
a
total
bonus.
amount, but I don't know that I want them going up and saying this person gets this amount, this person gets this amount, that kind of
Oh no, no, I don't want that. No, not like in a committee where they're the ones doling out the
right.
bonuses. I think what you do is there's a program, they appropriate the money for it, and then obviously the executive branch administers it. That's the way it's supposed to work. The bigger concern about legislative micromanagement to me, and I say this even as somebody who's been critical of some of the ways the state has invested its money, investing in Russia while Russia's invading Ukraine was terrible, bad look. I'm glad we divested. Some of our Chinese investments. I mean, we're invested in some ways that aren't so great. And on the other hand, I am worried that we're going to I don't want to create a situation where, if Democrats get control of North Dakota government, we have to divest in oil industry or fossil fuel industry investments, or if Republicans are in charge, we have to divest from, uh, you know, anything that might be touching on the liberal media I just,
Or green energy or
or green
something like
energy,
that.
whatever
Yeah.
it is. I just, I don't, I think it's a dangerous thing if we open ourselves up to that, and I'm worried that we're starting to walk down that road in some ways.
But I also think the state investment board has such an important role in all of this. Again, just because the legislature isn't providing that oversight doesn't mean that the state investment board shouldn't be. And it's chaired by the governor. There's a
Yeah.
reason why he put himself as the chair of that. Historically, it's been the lieutenant governor, and I think it's because Governor
I think in the
Armstrong
law, it's the governor. The governor can basically
or his
have somebody
designee.
there, and usually it's the lieutenant governor who
Yeah.
gets put there.
But I think he's made this a priority for him personally and he's right. I mean, we want them to make as much money as possible so we can pay for school meals, we can pay for property taxes, we can pay for all these things. So we want to make sure that we're doing right. But it just, they're big bonuses. And again, I would rather, but the problem is if you start bumping up all these folks' salary, then you end up with that, the prototypical article in the newspaper list with a headshot of what all these state employees make, and you still have people mad. And so,
Yeah. Well, no
not the
matter how
best of
much
the
we pay them,
brightest.
the highest paid state officials will probably be college coaches. So
Football coaches, yeah.
yeah, football or hockey coaches in our state.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I it I yeah. I mean, and the thing is even that. I mean, if we're gonna bring investment in house, then the people you're going to be competing with to hire some of these people, I mean, that's the way they pay the bonuses. I mean, we may have to emulate some of it. Doesn't mean we have to do everything or we have to treat it exactly like the private sector. But again, we've made the decision to bring some of this stuff in house. Some of these expectations come with the sort of people who are in that labor pool. they have there's certain expectations they have in terms of compensation. So but there's a better way to do this. One of the governor's best qualities, I think one of his great strengths are his instincts for this sort of thing. I think he is very, very good at discerning the sticking point, at discerning the rub. And I mean, just because even just right there, like it hadn't occurred to me that we really need a thorough review of the governance of this stuff. And I think that's probably right. Maybe even up to who sits on the state industrial, or on the state, excuse me, the state investment board. Um, I mean, maybe we need to look at some of this stuff.
Well, and he has just incredible political instincts. And one of the things that's the reason why I asked him about the budget process, because I think he's starting to allude to a really, really tough budget cycle coming up next January. I mean, I do think that there's something, when he starts saying, I want to show my fiscal conservativeness, I don't think you start, sort of indicating what's coming down the line unless you see some stuff in the tea leaves that's going to force that. I think there's some real budget constraints coming to the state in terms of oil prices, in terms of big beautiful bill health and human services cuts. I think this next session, it's going to be a tough one for the legislature, that they're going to have to, for the first time, really take hard looks. And somebody like me who cares a
First time
lot
in a
about,
long time.
yeah,
Well, we had that blip during Governor Dalrymple where the bottom kind of fell out of oil
where would you
prices
do the allotments for that
for a little
one?
bit.
Yeah,
I
but
don't think we're going to see that.
yeah,
And I think part of it is I mean, again, the governor seems to see it coming. I mean, I think he's going to be ready to, we're going to have a new reality. And it's not a bad thing. We all knew that oil was going to plateau, and here we are. I mean, we've arrived.
he sees it coming. I'm worried the legislature doesn't, though,
Well,
and for
that's true.
sure the public doesn't. For
Yeah.
sure, the public is still. I mean, you alluded to it. We should be able to pay for this. We should be able to pay for this. We should be able to pay for this. We're living in a time where most North Dakotans are paying very little in taxes. I mean, very little in income taxes. Their property taxes are about to go down pretty dramatically.
Even as our state government has gotten a lot bigger.
Exactly right. And at some point, the public has an expectation that I'm not going to pay much and I'm going to get these incredible services. When that balances out, does that lead to sort of a political change?
Well, I think
It might be good for the far right, if we're being honest.
well, and the thing about it is that was sort of the thinking behind the legacy fund in the first place, is that when we reached this point, legacy fund earnings could replace some of it and support it without having to just raise taxes. Now, I mean, generally, I think it's a dangerous thing to decouple the electorate from the cost of their government. I mean, I think when government gets bigger, we should pay more. When it gets smaller, we should pay less.
Yeah.
And when we start screwing with that relationship, we create some bad political outcomes, which could be some very far right people getting elected on the idea that they're going to cure the problem when in reality we're going to get something like Doge that is ineffectual and just creates chaos and problems.
Well, and let's be clear, it's a really great time to be the party in power when you can give tax cuts and give more services, right? I mean, that's a really great political equation that the Republicans have been working under for the last several years. I mean, I think the Republican swing started before that with Schaefer and others, but when you're giving tax cuts and also providing more money and more free services to people, works really well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what the federal government's been doing. It's why so many incumbents get elected over and over again, except that they've been doing it by financing it with debt.
Yeah.
Whereas in North Dakota, we had the money because we had oil. Yeah, that
So
always, Rick Burt was running for Congress and he couldn't stop saying, we've just got to take the North Dakota way to Washington. And I just kept thinking there's no oil in Washington, D.C. Like, are you going to find oil under the rotunda and
that's the key.
put up some oil, Derek? That's the North Dakota way is get
find
a bunch of oil revenue and spend it all.
Yeah. Where you said, like, it shouldn't be surprising, but he avoided the Somali talk quite a bit. I mean, like, I think that kind of stuff makes him uncomfortable. Again, when he's going down.
I think he was clear about how he feels about it.
Right.
I think he also understands the minefield that comes along with any sort of direct criticism of Donald Trump, and that's unfortunate. You can be critical of the governor of that if you want, but I think it's clear where his heart is
Yeah.
on that sort of thing. He's married to
Well,
an immigrant,
yeah. Legal immigrant, right?
legal immigrant. Yeah.
So, and I also thought like the farm bailout stuff, on one hand, we're talking about, well, the federal deficit is boom, boom, boom. But then we're also saying, okay, we're going to take this farm bailout that Donald Trump created for ourselves. And again, farmers and ranchers need this, but there's a reason why we have this deficit. It's because we're doing stupid things and then having to bail ourselves out for doing stupid things. It just gets a little bit tiresome to listen to conservatives talk about the deficit, but then at the same time support some of the stuff that this president's doing.
When we talk about maybe some of the sticker shock that's coming for North Dakota voters, there's some sticker shock coming from American voters nationally. I mean, if we ever get to the point where we're actually, we have this sort of serious people in place, and right now I'm looking around, I don't see many of those in Washington. But if we ever get to the point where we're going to get serious about it, there's going to be sticker shock. Like we are going to have far less government and far higher taxes. That's just there's no other way to cure a 1.8 a budget deficit that's routinely in the neighborhood of $2 trillion.
And it doesn't matter if you elect a Democrat, a Republican, doesn't matter anything. It keeps going up. I mean, since the Clinton,
yeah.
Gingrich Clinton, right? I mean, and part of me thinks it's going to take split government and leaders that are serious on both sides.
Well, we'll split government and then also a willingness on both sides to say, even though we're divided, we still have to govern. I mean, I think say what you want about Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich. I think at the end of the day, they ultimately understood what their jobs were, and their jobs was to get something done and to serve the public. I'm worried that in Washington, D.C. right now, they feel like their jobs are in the end. They feel like they're in the entertainment industry and
Well,
have no obligation to ever come together. Their only obligation is to keep their base happy so they can get reelected.
And I would like to think post-Trump, whoever the next president is, we're going to have a change. I used to think that. I don't think that anymore. I just think this is the new politics.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's terrible for us.
Yeah.
Really, really terrible as a country.
I mean, yeah. So Gavin Newsom and Mike Johnson are going to come together when Gavin Newsom is president to solve the problems.
No, I think, I'm sure each side will invent all sorts of, crazy conspiracy theories about, and that's, I mentioned Nick Fuentes briefly, but it is remarkable how, we complain about the politics. Here I'm going to go on another blame the voters rant, but what do you say when, there was an incident at a Cinnabon. I wrote about it. You were recording this on Wednesday. I wrote about it in my column. And the thing about it is not that some rando who's working a Cinnabon hurled some racial slurs. Because, we all know that people like that exist in our society. And they could get outed and you run into them. And it's not a good thing. I'm not happy about it. It's gross. But to me, what really made that a story worth paying attention to is that, the crowdfunding, like she's the victim. She used the N-word and other slurs. And listen, the couple that was recording her, they weren't being terribly nice either. Although in their defense, they were also being called racial slurs. So maybe they weren't in the mood to be polite. But what really made it is all the people who saw the woman spouting racial slurs and said, that is somebody, I want to make sure that she gets hundreds of thousands of dollars out of this.
And
it happened once before where the woman in a park in Minnesota, was it Rochester? I'm forgetting where.
But I think it was Rochester, yeah.
It was a similar situation where she used some racial slurs and all of a sudden she's the hero. What do you do with the public? I was just reading an article about this Candace Owens, who's a right-wing influencer, millions of YouTube channels, got like 1 billion views, millions of followers, making all sorts of money. And the stuff that she's spouting, she thinks that the president of France's wife was actually a man, and that the president Macron is actually her brother, and they're in this like incestuous transgender relationship, and he was elected due to a CIA program. I mean, there comes a point where you would hope people like, listen, you're not well. This is nonsense. But the thing is, she's got millions and millions of viewers. Alex Jones got, well, the multi-billion-dollar liability he created by with the Sandy Hook hoax, where he claimed that the Sandy Hook school shooting didn't happen. He got sued. Multi-billion-dollar judgment on his head. He's still on the air. He's still broadcasting. He's still got an audience in the millions. What do you do? How do you say like we need to do better when so many in the public are fine with this? They want this.
Well, it's not that they're fine with it that's even the most concerning. What's going through that person's head that's like, I got an extra $100. I'm not going to go and give it to the food pantry. I'm not going to give it to my local school. I'm not going to give it to my local church. I'm going to give it to this woman who works at a Cinnabon, who I don't know. The only thing I know about her is that she's racist and sort of a jerk. I'm going to give her my money rather than giving it to all these other things. I mean, I would rather these people give money to politicians or interest groups or something. Like, there's something wrong with society that, like, I keep hearing, we're broken. Adults are broken in this country.
And I
We
am
can't function.
I am all for giving people grace, giving people room to change, trying to support people who are changing, but that's not what that, I mean, I went and read the fundraising, I refused to link to it, but I went and read the fundraising page, and it wasn't about, let's help this person made a mistake, let's help her change, let's help her be better. It was, she's the victim. It was white women shouldn't have to be harassed by Somali or black, whatever trolls, or I forget the exact verbiage, but it was like, she's the victim and she did nothing wrong. She did something. She used racial slurs.
Right.
I don't.
And what are we saying to society that you do this stuff and you get $100,000? Don't you create more of these situations?
I mean, in a completely different context, but also not all that different a context. I was reading about a public opinion poll where, like, Gen Z voters are fine with the Trump administration just using war powers against drug traffickers, even as he pardons a drug trafficker. They're fine with it. And I'm just like, there doesn't seem to be any intellectual rigor there. Like, we don't care that Congress is supposed to be the one that invokes war powers. Like, the president's not supposed to use them unless Congress authorizes them. And yet, I mean, I don't, I mean, does anybody in the public care about that sort of nuance anymore?
Well, and I was shocked at on your Facebook page, the amount of on this, like, just gunning down people who are, supposedly bringing drugs somewhere, not even necessarily the United States, and all these people who are basically just saying, yeah, they deserved it. What are you talking about? In what world? I mean, I heard somebody use the analogy, so we're just going to start shooting people who are maybe selling drugs on the street? Police officer just goes and shoot somebody because they
Senator
maybe.
Senator Rand Paul pointed out that, like, in a high number of cases, these boats don't have drugs on them. Now, I don't know about the ones that are blown up. They're blown up now. Did they have drugs on them? I don't know.
And I've
But the thing is, I mean, his point is, a lot of times when we board these vessels, we don't find anything. The government sometimes goes looking for stuff. It doesn't find a crime. But yet, when we're deciding, when we fire a missile, we do an airstrike, they're dead. What if they didn't have drugs? What if the government, now we just killed them and they didn't have drugs and the government made a mistake? And I would put this in another context. We're rounding people up off the street and just deporting them. And the Trump administration says they have the right to do that because they say illegal immigrants don't have the same rights as citizens do. And they're right to a point. The problem is, how do you establish as a legal question whether or not a person is a citizen? What if they say, listen, I have a visa or I have refugee status and there's some dispute about it, but they don't get a day in court. Next thing you know, they're in a prison in a tin pot dictatorship in Central America.
Yeah. The fundamental right to due process is something that evidently in today's America, Trump folks don't believe in. If it's somebody of color or if it's somebody who's maybe coming
They
from a
believe in
foreign
it when
country.
it's Trump.
Yeah, they believe when it's Trump. They believe it when it's their kids or their family or their business. But if it's some person who's maybe not from here, just take them off the streets. I mean, again, due process is supposed to be fundamental. in the
You know,
United States.
it brings us back to something what we were talking about with the governor about how like you made the point, like, well, working at a food pantry or something makes my liberal heart sing. And I know you didn't mean it this way, but that's not a liberal value or a conservative value. It's a human value.
It is.
And some of these things like due process and the First Amendment and all these constitutional protections that we have, and we can have a debate about what our policies are or shouldn't be. That's democracy. But we've just lost sight of caring about this. It's like if my guy's doing it, then it must be okay, and I don't really care about anything else.
In going back to the liberal heart singing,
And I wasn't being critical
no,
of you for
no,
saying it
no,
that way at
because
all.
it did. I mean, hopefully it makes conservative hearts sing as well. But one of the things that I really liked about the governor's response to that was the work he's doing, and the first lady is doing a ton of this work in the state, is making sure these folks get seen, right? Because it's very easy to ignore the folks that are going to ministry at the margins or the Dream Center, other places to get their food, that are struggling with homelessness, that need their SNAP benefits. It's so easy to ignore those people. When the governor pays attention to it, it makes sure others pay attention to the problems. And kudos to him.
Oh, I think it's easy to dismiss them too, because you start looking down there. A lot of them probably have criminal records. A lot of times, I'm not saying they all do. I'm not saying they're criminals because they're on hard times, but a lot of times those things go hand in hand. And so it's easy to dismiss them. Well, they're an addict. They're criminal. We shouldn't have to care about them. They're not a priority. And yet they are. If we want them to stop being criminals, if we want them to stop suffering, uh, they have to be a priority. And, you know, I think one of the most important things about this governor is, I mean, he brought it up himself, is his background in criminal defense. Like it makes you understand. Sometimes I don't wonder why defense attorneys, I think sometimes get like they're like, oh, they're very liberal or very democratic. But you want to talk about people who don't trust the government? Talk to a defense attorney,
Right.
who are dealing with some of the most awesome powers the government has and frequently sees them abused. So I think some of Kelly's conservatism comes from that background whereas you think, oh, it makes him a bleeding heart. Not really. It makes them understand the limitations of government and the ways government can be abused and the way government can let people fall through the cracks.
But I also think him pointing out his grandmother who set up the North Dakota Mental Health Association
Right.
and made sure from a very young age that Kelly Armstrong saw these people. They couldn't ignore these people. So I think it's all of it. Again, I think the first lady has a lot to do with this. I think him having kids that are have friends from all kinds of economic backgrounds, it's really important. We need to make sure these folks get seen. The governor and his family did a great thing on Thanksgiving.
We've kind of rambled in this part covering some of these things, but they've been on my mind a lot. And I think part of it is because it's the holiday season. And I love the holiday season. I love, even though I'm not spiritual myself, I love Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I like being with my family and doing all those things and trying to remember to be kind to other people and be generous and all those things. And it's caused me to reflect on where we are, not just nationally, but even right here in North Dakota, even some of my neighbors, where it's just there's nothing that matters but the tribe now. And it's such an ugly place for us to be. And it's had me feeling so disillusioned. And it's nice. I mean, there are people working in politics, working in public service who really care and are really trying to do the right thing. But the problem is they have to tiptoe around it sometimes because, I mean, doing the right thing is not what gets you rewarded in this political environment right now.
Especially in the conservative side of things with the Trump presidency, right? I mean, it is really, really difficult. We saw with Goring last week, and we saw it to a certain extent with Kelly today. I mean, they know what the right thing is, and
Yeah.
the president with the Somali stuff, with the tariffs, it's a very, very difficult thing for them to. And it's not Trump; it's Trump supporters
Yeah.
who are so like
And
the
I
key.
mean, I think in the moment too, because it's ascendant, but we could roll back the clock and look at some of the callousness that I think national Democrats felt for this part of the world
Right.
and some of the, it's just a bunch of backward rubes living out in flyover country, and who really cares about them? I mean, there's truth in that as well. And it's gotten worse. And right now, Meg is ascendant, and they're very visible, and it's they're the latest escalation, I guess. So it's easy to talk about them, but we've been on this path for generations now,
Yeah.
and it's got to stop. And speaking of stopping, we should stop the show right here because we've used up all our time.
Stop talking.
Stop talking. As we tried to get the governor to do during his I was literally getting messages saying, well, he's got to go, he's got another interview, and it's like I'm trying to get him off.
Hey, let him know because we're
Yeah.
wrapping this thing up.
Yeah, there probably was someone standing in front of him giving him hand signals like air traffic controller. Okay, we're gonna go. Remember, you can follow us on social media. We're not hard to find. Search for Plain Talk. Plain Talk ND is our tag or handle on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all the things. YouTube in particular. It's been a great place to go. I find you just finally subscribed to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I didn't even know I had an account on YouTube. So
Yeah. Your chat is not of the YouTube generation, I guess. No, I do like it. YouTube is pretty great. But you can find us there. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, by the way, coming up on the next show, we're gonna, I guess, kind of continue on this theme. We're gonna have Hamida Takane. She was a state representative from Fargo. She's not currently. She lost the last election, but she's also a member of the Somali community, and we're going to talk about some of these things, what's going on nationally, and how it's impacting her and her community. We'll talk about that coming up on the next Plain Talk. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again. That's it for today on Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. Plain Talk is a production of Forum Communications Company. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave us a voicemail or send us a text message at 701-587-3141. That's 701-587-3141. If you haven't subscribed to Plain Talk yet, you can find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For those of you who are already hooked, give us a rating or review. And don't forget to share or tell a friend. Special thanks to my co-host Chad Oban, and from myself and everyone at Plain Talk, thanks for listening.
I mean, that makes my liberal heart feel good, Kelly, all of these things.